What if the real story of Iran isn't found in the headlines, but right here on its streets? A busy road, a local bakery, a metro train arriving at a station, a small shop opening for the day, food being prepared on the street, and ordinary people moving through one of the most fascinating countries in the Middle East. Today, we're taking a closer look at Iran through everyday life. Not a political debate, not a fictional story. Just streets, markets, food, transportation, shops, architecture, and the people who make these cities feel alive. So let's leave the headlines behind and start walking through real Iran. Our journey begins on the streets, in a large Iranian city. The first thing you notice is movement. Cars fill the roads. Buses carry passengers through different neighborhoods. Motorcycles move between traffic, and pedestrians make their way through busy sidewalks. But look beyond the traffic. There are bakeries selling fresh bread, grocery stores filled with everyday products, small restaurants, clothing stores, phone shops, pharmacies, and countless businesses serving the people who live nearby. This is a side of a country that is easy to miss when you only visit famous landmarks, because a city is not just its monuments. It's the places people visit every day, the shop they enter after work, the bakery where they buy bread, the restaurant where they stop for lunch, the street they walk through on their way home. And that brings us to one of the most important parts of Iranian daily life: food. Walk through an Iranian city, and food is never far away. You may see bakeries preparing traditional bread, restaurants serving rice and meat dishes, kebab being cooked, fresh fruit and vegetables in markets, and small places serving quick meals. Iranian cuisine is diverse, with different regions known for different ingredients and dishes. But some foods are familiar across the country: kebab, rice dishes, dizzy, ash, and, of course, different types of traditional bread. Food here isn't only something to photograph. It's part of everyday life. A quick breakfast, lunch with family, tea with friends, something picked up from a local shop, or a meal enjoyed after spending hours in the market. And if you want to understand the atmosphere of Iranian streets, food markets are one of the best places to slow down and look around, because that's where food, commerce, and everyday life come together. Now, let's leave the food stalls behind and walk through the local shopping streets. Iranian cities have everything from modern shopping centers to tiny neighborhood stores. Some businesses are modern and brightly lit. Others operate from older storefronts that have been serving local communities for years. You might see clothing hanging outside a shop, spices arranged in containers, fruit stacked near the sidewalk, or a baker bringing fresh bread out to customers. Every street has its own rhythm. Some are crowded, others are surprisingly quiet. And that's something worth remembering when filming a country. There isn't one single version of Iran. A busy downtown street doesn't represent a quiet residential neighborhood. A traditional bazaar doesn't represent every shopping area. And one person's lifestyle doesn't represent an entire population. The most interesting approach is simply to observe. Watch the traffic, look at the stores, notice the architecture, and let the city tell its own story. Now we're going underground. The Tehran metro is an important part of getting around the capital. At busy stations, passengers move through entrances and platforms as trains arrive and depart. For travelers, public transportation can reveal another side of the city. You see people going to work, students traveling, shoppers carrying bags, passengers changing lines, and people simply trying to get from one neighborhood to another. Then the train arrives, doors open, passengers step inside, and within minutes, the scenery above ground has completely changed. This is the interesting thing about a major city like Tehran. You can move from a historic district to a modern commercial area to a completely different neighborhood without leaving the same transportation system. And once you come back above ground, the streets are waiting again. Now we enter one of Iran's most recognizable environments, the traditional bazaar. A bazaar is much more than a place to buy souvenirs. It is a working commercial space. Inside, you may find carpets, clothing, gold and jewelry, spices, nuts, dried fruits, household products, and countless other goods. The corridors can be narrow, The shops are often packed closely together, and there's movement everywhere. Customers looking at products, merchants speaking with buyers, workers carrying goods, visitors exploring the passages. The atmosphere is completely different from a modern shopping mall, and that's what makes these markets so interesting. They connect the present with older traditions of commerce. You can see historic architecture around you, while watching people conduct very modern, everyday business. And when you step back outside, you suddenly return to the noise of the modern city. Cars, buses, people, shops, and traffic. But buildings and markets aren't the whole story. The most important part of any city is the people. And when you're walking through Iran, you'll see ordinary scenes everywhere. People heading to work, families shopping, friends meeting for food, students walking through the streets, shopkeepers serving customers, drivers waiting in traffic, people sitting in cafes, someone buying bread for home. None of these moments are extraordinary, and that's exactly why they're worth showing. Because travel isn't only about seeing something spectacular. Sometimes it's about seeing how ordinary life works in a place you've never visited. And for an international viewer, these small moments can make a country feel much less distant. You begin to realize that behind every street, there are people following routines, working, shopping, eating, meeting friends, and living their everyday lives. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Iran is the contrast. Historic architecture can exist beside modern roads. Traditional markets can operate alongside contemporary businesses. Old neighborhoods can sit close to newer parts of the city. Traditional food is served in modern restaurants. And younger generations live with both old traditions and modern technology. This mixture gives Iranian cities a unique character. You don't have to choose between old Iran and modern Iran. In many places, you can see both within the same afternoon. Walk through an old market, then take the metro, eat traditional food, then walk past modern shops. Look at historic architecture, then return to a busy urban road. That contrast is what makes exploring Iran so visually interesting. After following the roads, walking through the shops, watching the food being prepared, riding the metro, exploring the bazaar, and observing everyday people, one thing becomes clear. A country cannot be reduced to one image. Iran is large. Its cities are different. Its regions have different food, traditions, landscapes, and lifestyles. So the most honest travel story isn't about pretending to show everything. It's about showing what is actually in front of the camera. One street, one market, one meal, one neighborhood, one ordinary moment at a time. Maybe that's what real travel is all about. Not just seeing famous places, but seeing how people actually live. The roads, the shops, the food, the markets, the trains, and the everyday streets. This is not the whole story of Iran, but it is one real glimpse of it. This is Iran. Iran. And sometimes the most interesting side of a country is simply the side you can see by walking through its streets.